Well, last week we had a bit of a call to action when we were referring to culture of honour. So it was a commitment, for those that remember. Or if you weren't here, I'll just quickly go through a little bit. So commitment to establishing a counterculture. An agreement to hold ourselves accountable and actively work together to see this come into reality. An establishment to set a personal example, first in ourselves, but in our church family. And to spread the love, to extend that culture into our community, so wherever we are, whatever we're doing. Well, how do we practically see that? How do we practically do that? You know, we go through life and, you know, as we talked about default or design, we go through life and, you know, we're not always conscious of what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. So how do we actually do this thing where we're loving each other, but it's healthy and it's sustainable and it actually has a kingdom outcome? Because, you know, I don't know about you, but I don't want to do anything, you know, day in, day out, be religious on it and not actually have an impact for his kingdom, not actually have transformation within. How do we have a healthy foundation that not only encourages but sustains love, where we're not hurting each other in the process of trying to be healed together and grow together and learn how to love each other? Well, we're going to do another small exercise just quickly, if you're happy to close your eyes again. And just, if I could ask you, just have a bit of a think, imagine a little bit for you. What is God saying? What does it look like to have this culture? What does this culture look like? You just spend a few moments thinking about that. If you want to keep your eyes closed, that's fine. I'm just going to go through, well, for me, when I did this, what is that good, or what does this look like? Well, it's accountability over punishment. It's confrontation over judgment. Diversity over uniformity. Love over fear. Forgiveness over bitterness. Healing over hurt. Acceptance over rejection. Alignment over disunity. And boundaries over dysfunction. You see, change doesn't just happen. And if you are tired and you need to go to sleep, by all means keep your eyes closed, but otherwise you're welcome to open them now. How are we all going? We're going good? We're ready? Can I have your permission to just get through this a bit faster, because there's a lot here, and the more I go into a message, the more there is to share. So, you know, I've got the rest of my life, so I can chew through these things as I go. So change is difficult, but it takes a vision, takes a purpose. It takes a people, and, you know, it takes all of us. If we want to see change, well, that's not by default. Change is always by design. We have to assess what's happening, reassess it, and adjust. Is this working? Are we getting it right? Are we having the outcome that God would want us to have in our lives and with each other? We make those adjustments. When we can find a way to shift from the way that we've always done things, or we're currently doing things, and see the change, the kingdom change in our lives and in our church and in our community, straight away we have a momentum. Right? It's not like one Sunday we talk about honor and we talk about change and we're feeling good, and on the Monday we see some change, and on the Tuesday we fail, so on the Wednesday we go back to square one. When we're establishing a shift, we're establishing a mindset shift, we're establishing a culture shift, well, there's momentum in there, because when we don't get it right, or when we don't get the results we want to see, we keep going, and we have momentum, and that's key. The kingdom is momentum in our lives. It's ups, it's downs, it's ins, it's outs, but our momentum is to the cross, eternity. So whatever we do now and to then, you know, let's make it be for Jesus. So, well, how do we establish this culture, right? When we're talking about vulnerability, we're talking about confrontation, we're talking about holding each other accountable. Well, we can't do that without boundaries, because boundaries are key. That's why we need leaders in the church, because they establish boundaries in the house. They make it safe for us. They lead us in the direction that we can't lead ourselves, so to speak. That they help us get there through gentle nudging, or like a shepherd with a staff, or the fence boundaries, keeping us safe from, keeping the sheep safe from the wolves. Well, when we're talking about levels of vulnerability with each other, or levels of intimacy, we need to consider what level of connection we have and whether the person we're being intimate with is going to respect us and be responsible with that level of connection. For example, if I shared with somebody here something personal about our lives, if we already had that connection and that relationship was safe, well, if it was something like a struggle, we wouldn't feel like we're going to be judged. Or if it was a blessing and a miracle, we wouldn't feel like we're going to be judged through a spirit of jealousy. There's that connection. And if there was something there, we would also have that foundation where we could talk through it in a healthy way. How many of you know that if you don't have healthy boundaries, straight away you would attract people that disrespect you, take advantage of you, takers. The enemy uses that to steal from you what is good and what he has for his kingdom. So these boundaries are really important. Thank you, Helen. How many here have had things stolen from them? Because you've gone, I'm going to love you, and that person takes everything from you. So it's really important that the level of intimacy also reflects a level of responsibility in that relationship, okay? What's okay, what's not okay? Well, what's okay for this interaction? What's not okay for this interaction? I'm, not going to go to, I don't know, I don't want to pick on anyone today. I make up these random examples. But I'm not going to go to someone that's, has terrible marriages or has had many terrible marriages and there's no victory in that. I'm not going to go to them for marriage counseling. I'm going to go to a marriage counselor or, somebody that has a beautiful marriage that's, like Alex and Karen, or Paul and Sasha, or many others here as well. It's really important that we're not opening up the levels of intimacy in our heart and vulnerability and the spaces in our house to those that can't handle that level of responsibility, because that's up to us. It's what we control. If we allow somebody in that doesn't have that level of understanding of what that responsibility looks like and how to love you through that, well, straight away, it's not really their fault. They're doing their best. Boundaries are our responsibility. Does this make sense to everyone? I know you've heard all of this before, but going through the culture of honor is really important, because if I stand at the front like the last few messages and say, hey, we need to be vulnerable with each other, well, I feel like I need to talk about what does that look like. I'm not just going to rock up on a Sunday and just spill your guts to everyone. That's not healthy. We want order, not chaos. So it's our responsibility to manage our yeses and our nos. With that in mind, I'd like to turn to Matthew 5, verse 37. But let your yeses be yeses and your noes be noes, for whatever is more than this comes from the evil one. So Jesus is talking about making oaths, right? In the passage just before. So he's saying, don't commit to anything you can't do. But in this passage, he's also saying, if you're going to say yes to something, say yes to it. If you're going to say no to something, say no to it. It's our responsibility to take ownership for what we're saying yes and no to, for that level of boundary that we're having in our life. And if we're going to say yes to something, that we can actually measure up to that. Healthy confrontation is done with love and honor for the purpose of seeking understanding and restoration in the relationship. So we did touch on confrontation in the previous message, so I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit. When we have something we need to talk to our brother about or our sister about, well, it needs to be number one, we want to seek understanding. And number two, we want to either build connection or restore connection. That needs to be the driver. It's not about, and I mean, all of you would probably, have moments this week or last week or in your life where you come into a conversation, especially with spouses, isn't that right, Ellie, that, you kind of want a good outcome, but you come into it with how you're feeling and your perspective. It's about getting that person to understand you. It's about getting that person to come into alignment with the way you think. It's about that person agreeing with you. Why do we honor people that we agree with? Because we see ourselves in them. I want you to be like me so I can love and honor you in an easy way that's not difficult. So it's really important when we're coming into a conversation that, it's first of all, these two things. We need a bridge to be able to bring the message. If we don't have a bridge, a healthy bridge, straight away you walk over that bridge and it crashes and burns, or, now that bridge, which is connection, it's that relationship as an example, deteriorates. There's actually no connection there anymore. So we need to be really careful in this space and love and honor each other in the way we bring confrontation. You with me? Cool. Now, I'm touching on a few different elements here. Each of these spaces we could go into for weeks. But today I'm not going to do that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of more opportunities. We can have those discussions. Maybe you can have those discussions at the Bible teaching night. What is it called again? Faith to Soar. Maybe you can go deeper. So when we're looking at healthy confrontation or developing connection, well, we need to look at healing as well. And again, I'm not going to go into this heaps, but the journey of healing is in our hearts. And when we become a Christian and we accept the cross into our life, straight away we come into alignment with our end self. We say, well, I'm leaving my old life, I'm entering my new life, I'm born again. My old life is buried, my flesh is buried, I now pick up my spiritual self and I'm with Jesus. But why does, in a year or two or a day or three, why is now sometimes so difficult? Well, we're on a journey of healing, and we're on a journey of being hurt as well, unfortunately. Hopefully, the journey of healing would outshine the journey of hurt. But that's life. We're people. God is God, and it's just about bringing ourselves into alignment with Him, being set free. Now, in relation to healing, right, a lot of this is strongholds that we have either not dealt with or we've allowed to be built. Don't worry, I'm not going to go into strongholds. You're all safe today. I'll let you do that with Jesus in your morning devotion. When we have these strongholds, they're basically a castle where the enemy can come in and say, I've now got power in your life. We've actually unintentionally given the enemy influence in our actions, thoughts, feelings, our families, our communities, and our church. And that's okay because, again, we're on a journey of healing. We were born into this world as an orphan. How many of you know that? Because when Adam and Eve were in the garden, They were sons and daughters of God, and through sin, separation from God. So separation from God is orphan spirit. Separation from the Father. That's what we're meaning there. So we're on a journey from orphan to sonship. And when we accept the cross, we accept sonship. But we've got to learn how to be a son or a daughter, because we were born into learning how to be orphans, and, that didn't do too well for us. It's important that our identity is rooted in the cross. It's important that the way we see ourselves is rooted in how God sees us. It's the only way to get to where God's taking us. So I just wanted to touch on that briefly from last week's message. Today I want to shift a little bit and get into a bit of a slightly different gear, and I'm going to talk about the great mindset shift. I made that up. How good is it? Well, I didn't. Maybe God made it up. Hopefully God made it up. Please. The great mindset shift. How good is that? Spirit of sonship, spirit of generosity, and a servant heart. These three things are so important. And these three things in our life have had a mindset put on us from our parents or our community, just default, that doesn't always come into alignment with kingdom mindset. So I want to talk about a mindset shift in these three spaces. We've touched briefly on the spirit of sonship. So this is how God sees us, how we see ourselves, and how we see God. So when we have a revelation of the Father's heart and who He is in our life, straight away we know that we're a son and a daughter because we know His love for us. When we know His love for us, we know our love for Him. When we know our love for Him and His love for us, well, straight away we know His heart for each other and His love for each other. The spirit of sonship, or as a daughter, I do apologize, sonship is just written here, but what that is a spirit of adoption, okay? We're adopted into the kingdom. We need a revelation of His heart for ourselves. If you'll turn with me to Romans 8, verse 14, please. We all there? Cool. You're doing well today. It's beautiful weather outside and you're sitting in here. I'm looking forward to getting back outside, maybe to the beach in the afternoon. Anyone else going to the beach? Maybe for a walk? When the weather drops down a little bit? Yeah. We're so blessed. We live in such a beautiful country, beautiful city. We are blessed. Not that I want to go on a tangent, but we are so blessed. I mean, I'm blessed to be here. You're blessed to be here. We're all blessed to be here with each other. Me and Ellie, we always talk about how blessed we are for such a beautiful church family. Everyone's just so genuine and loving and caring. And it's really important to say that, because when we're talking about culture and we're bringing things to the forefront of our minds, it's not to say you're getting it wrong. It's just to bring the next thing God's doing in that space together. And I think we'll be preaching about this kind of stuff if we weren't already on that path. Yeah. Verse 14, for as many are led by the Spirit, these are sons of God. For you did not receive a spirit of bondage, again to fear. You received the spirit of adoption, by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit of Himself bears witness to our spirit, and we are the children of God. And if children, then heirs of God and joint heirs with Christ. And indeed, if we suffer with Him, we may also be glorified with Him. What's God saying here? He's our Father. When we cry, Abba, Father, that's the most intimate connection to God as Father. Abba's meaning Father, but in this context, we cry, Abba, Father. And Jesus, cried out, Abba, Father. Garden of Gethsemane. I think like Jesus is such a theme, right? Which is really good. Got Jesus shirts. Jesus was sang about, words brought about Jesus and the nature of him. When we have this revelation that we are children of God, it comes with some benefits. We are royalty, right? Each of us here today are part of a royal family, and how many know that royals act differently? Royals get judged. They're all over the news. When you make a wrong move or a little mistake, it's blown up to a big thing. Well, royalty. We have access to the kingdom of God. We're seated in Jesus. He's seated in the throne. He's seated with God. We're seated in Jesus. We're seated with God. We have access to the heavenly realms. We're heirs. We are positioned where we need to be. Sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we all forget that. We need each other. We need a recalibration today, church. Maybe not just in this house, but in our city, in our nation. Come on. Me and my brother-in-law say this thing, boom, when we feel like revelation is just that one little bit. It's just from heaven, and it just radically changes everything. So if you want to say it with me, boom, boom, woo. Knowing our identity is key to unlocking what God is doing in our life here and with each other. Boom. Thank you. Keep that going. Let's do that. Woo. Now, in Ephesians 1, verse 4 to 6, you can turn there if you like. It'll be on the screen, but it's, we are predestined to adoption. We were orphans, fatherless because of sin, separated from the Father, but through Jesus, we've now been adopted. We're on the journey of alignment with the spirit of adoption. Okay? We're going to get there. It's okay. Coming into alignment with the spirit of sonship, being a child, is that first mindset shift. So that's number one. Spirit of adoption. When we operate out of that place, we're now not upset with each other. And if we get it wrong, we're okay because, hey, I don't get my worth from you anymore. I get it from Jesus, and you do. Spirit of generosity. Now, when we're going through the spirit of generosity, it is going to involve finance, and I do apologize for that. I tried to get away from that because it's an uncomfortable topic. The thing is, though, you can't. It's in the Word. So this is about having a spirit of generosity, not how much you give when you give. However, we will go into the blessing of that. We'll touch a little bit in that space. Are you all okay with that? This is to unlock the church. This is to empower us. This is to help us see change. The thing is, how many of you know here that the more you earn, the more gets taken from you? The less you earn, the more gets taken from you. Whether it's through taxes, through cost of living, family, friends, it just melts like butter through your hands, doesn't it? And in a way that I think that's what the enemy wants to happen with our money. I don't think it's what happens with the treasuries of heaven. I don't think it happens with God's wealth. I think God's wealth is protected in his kingdom. That's a key. When we're talking about generosity, the thing is with finance, it is a bit of a temperature gauge test of our hearts because, if we're fine, like, here you go. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? Our hearts definitely lay down because you're not going to go like that with your money if it's not. So it's a bit of a temperature gauge. It helps us understand what level of surrender we have. Now, I've been personally hurt in church before when it comes to finance. I had laid down everything I had and more, and then saw that used and squandered for things that weren't the kingdom. Has anyone had that before? Yeah. So when we're looking at generosity, we're also looking at trust. Can I trust you? Can you trust me? Can we trust God? We can. Thank you. We can trust God. Boom. It's not about how much we give, it's how we give. That's the key. How we give. The level of our heart surrender, that we're like, Jesus, what I have is yours. And that's the hardest test when it comes to money, because it's so hard to get, so easy to leave. When we're looking at laying our heart down, we're looking at generosity, we're looking at everything in our life. It might be, and we talked about boundaries, so we need to apply boundaries here, right? You might have your last $100 and God says, go bless that person. Well then, you're going to go and bless that person and you're going to see a kingdom reward in that space. Not necessarily will be money, it might be kingdom impacting. But if someone comes up to you after that and says, hey, can I have some more money? Helen, can I have another $100? You gave it to me so willingly last week. Well, Helen needs to have a boundary, because that's not God. Boom. Now, this is the first time I've preached in this hall, and I've got to say, I do like it. It's nice and big. It's got black curtains. You all look very pretty today. Thank you for bringing your best. Boom. Especially Karen and Alex. I mean, I'm going to buy a couple of those t-shirts, I think, because I really like them. I've been looking for a t-shirt. Maybe we should start a business and just do different t-shirts, because I would be your main customer, and I think Ellie would as well. I'm looking for a black t-shirt that has a big cross on it like that. Paul has a khaki one with a big white cross. I think it's like a jumper. I really like it, but black, white, I like that. All right, so when it comes to what we have, it's God's anyway, isn't it? If we've got to lay down life, well, it's God, so it doesn't really matter. He's got us. Acts 2:44, if you'd like to turn there with me, please. This is not about compulsion to be giving what is yours. This is a heart position to be laid down for God so he can actually have power in your life in all areas, okay? So in chapter 2, verse 44, let's have a look here together. Now, all who believed were together and had all things in common, and sold their possessions and goods and divided them among all, as anyone had need. So, and this second verse, or part of this passage, normally gets glazed over. We don't read this part. So continuing daily with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from the house to house, they ate their food with gladness and simplicity of heart, praising God and having favor with all people. And the Lord added to the church daily those who were being saved. Why is the spirit of generosity so important? Well, because when we lay our life down, that's a perfect example of what the kingdom is built upon. Doesn't only mean that God has influence in our life to see his kingdom come. We read that and we're like, well, I don't have as much as you. Give me some of what you got. It's only fair, right? You've been working for years to get your wealth. It is a leveling, right? But it's actually God taking back what the enemy had been using for evil and using it for good, saying, well, I'm going to use this wealth to build the kingdom. I'm going to use this wealth so you could all be together every day, so you could be praying together, so you could win favor with people, so you could be out on the streets and actually connecting with the community and seeing his kingdom come to see the will of the Father done on the earth. Well, we live in a world where that takes money. That is one element. So when you're giving, whether it's today or in the future or whatever you're doing, don't give out of compulsion. There's no blessing in that. Rather, search your heart and see if you've laid everything down for God and you're saying, God, what do you want me to do with what I have? Because it's yours. I'm a steward of everything that you've given me. Might be family. Might be your car. Now, just be a minute. So I want to share a little story. When I was 27, 26, almost 27. I was in Queensland. I did share a little bit about how I picked my life up and I was, living a worldly, destructive life. And I came to my knees and I was like, Jesus, if you take this from me, I'll give you everything. Well, I ended up hopping up. I was in a 2-story apartment living with some other people. And I was on the end of my bed. I had my Bible still. I don't know why I kept this Bible. And I was like, okay, well, that's it. I was weeping. Like, God, that was it. Like, I don't know. And just hopped up and everything felt normal again. Well, I got a phone call. And it was from a removalist company that I was working with. And they said, on Monday we have this job for you. And the person that normally would take this job never would let anyone take his work. It was his work, it was his truck. No one ever drove his truck. But he had got called into surgery early, so they called me up and he said, actually Rocky can drive the truck. Weirdly, I didn't even know him. That was on the Saturday. On the Sunday, I went to church. And actually, no, that's not how the story happened. Sorry. 2 stories, I'm combining them. Didn't go to the church on the Sunday, wasn't there yet. On the Monday, I did this job, and I was really struggling because there was all these big boxes of books. Like, who has so many books? Who lives on this beautiful house on the lake, and there's like 30, 40 big boxes of books, and I'm just like, oh. But while I was working hard, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, there's people here that are just being so kind to each other. There's a weird culture here. Why are they interacting this way? Why are they asking me so many questions about who I am, what I do, and about my life? Why do they keep looking at me with sparkling eyes? Why do I feel like they're talking about me whenever I'm not looking? Why are they buying me pizza? Like I'm working. No, I'm getting paid to do this for you. And who is this couple that they're all going to all the time? Well, I was like, are they Christians? Is this the answer to my prayer? It's like, nah. God, if they are, they're going to ask me and they're going to talk to me about it. Well, what I didn't know is they're going, God's got something on this guy. Should we invite him to youth? And that's what they were talking about. And they're like, nah, like it's a bit weird. He's working. Well, this was some senior pastors of a fairly large church up in Queensland. And this was their whole youth, young adult group there. Like, not all of them, but, they all were from their youth, young adult group. And they eventually were like, Rocky, this might seem weird, but you've just been on our heart all day. God's got something for you, and I don't know your past, but what I know is he's calling you into his kingdom. And I just broke down. I'm just like, God, you've given me a people to help me. You did that. God added to his church that day. And then a little bit time goes by and I don't have much money and I'm, been encouraged to be connected in and serve, and that led into, hey, you want to do Bible college? So I was like, okay, cool. It's really good, great community. But I didn't have much money, and because I was about to start studying and wasn't really working so much. All I had was, I think it was like $280 in my pocket. And I'm in the worship service, and after that, someone comes up and they did a really good tithing offering message. And they're like, God wants what you've got. God needs what you've got. This is all true. But then they said, don't give out of compulsion. Ask God what he wants you to do in that space. So I did. Actually, another thing is in worship, I have my arms up. And this was a problem for me because I wasn't free in that space. I thought, that's a little bit wishy-washy. And 2 hands grabbed my arms and lifted them up. And I was looking, no one was there. So, and I share that. I know it's a bit of a tangent, but there was some freedom happening in this space for me. I was laying my life down again to Jesus, and he was testing me. He was giving me an opportunity. And so I was like, okay, God, well, what do you want me to give today? I haven't given to church in a long time. Pretty hurt in this space. Don't really want to give anything. What are they going to do with it anyway? They're probably just going to upgrade their car or their house. They're going to go out to an exotic holiday, Well, God said $280. I was like, what? So I'll give like $20, God. He said $280, Rocky. I was like, God, but I actually have all these things I need to buy. I need to get a bookshelf, Bible college. I need to get a computer. I need to get a computer desk. I need to get a computer chair. And I would love an outdoor kind of setting, table and some chairs. It's like, God's like, no, you need to lay this down. So I actually went through this process and was like, okay, my heart was like, this was just him testing my heart. So I did, I gave it, and I was like, well, I had no food, I had no petrol, didn't know when I was going to be working next. It was just giving it and going, I won't say the word that I said, but boom. It's God's anyway, right? So in Acts here, they laid everything down. That's key. It's not giving everything, it's laying it all down. And then God was like, hey, the leaders distribute it, right? There was order in that space that was used for God. It wasn't just going, here's a house. Do what you want with it. It was, here's a house. That's a house ministry. It's going to save souls. It's going to have worship nights. It's going to be a place where people can come and be empowered and be free. It's God's. It's not ours. Well, I did another removalist job. Got a call that evening. Hey, Monday, got this job for you. And I rock up and the door opens and the girl goes, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you're here. I've been trying to sell all of this stuff and no one's buying it. So I just want to say, I know I'm paying for this, but if you know or you need anything, I've got all this stuff here and you can just have it. Anyone want to guess what it was? Bookshelf, computer desk, chair, and a wicker outdoor setting. A wicked outdoor setting. So I got money, boom. I got everything that I needed. And this was like, my life was completely changed since then because I know that in God's hands, he's got me. And the blessing's just been flowing ever since. But I'm still tested. God multiplies. In God, what we have is protected. Okay? God is a rich God. So rich. He's got everything we need. Everything we'll ever need. He's got it all. And if you're hearing today about money and going, well, what do I have to give God? Well, why don't we just change our perspective in this space? God, what do you have for me that's going to bring in money into the kingdom? What ideas do you have for me that's going to multiply it? Well, or, God, what can I do that doesn't include or involve money? because we don't all have the same level. We don't have the same understanding in how to steward it. We don't have the same empowerment as each other in this space. However, that's in the flesh. In the spirit, it levels the playing field, just like in Acts that we saw here. Everyone is equal, no matter what's in your pockets. Everyone is powerful and rich, because God is rich, and we get our wealth from Him. You know, I come from a church previously, Vineyard Church, and they never once preached on giving tithing and made people feel like they had to give out of compulsion. Yet, somebody gave $10,000, which they were able to buy their first little building with, and every single week there was just abundance of money flowing through the house that was being used for the kingdom, seeing healing, transformation, ministries. And then Foodland, the building that they were in, was like, we're renovating, so you need to move somewhere else for a little while. And they're like, well, what about moving back? And they said, well, we're going to build you a new church. We're going to provide all your sound equipment, everything that you need, we're going to build it. And Rob and Deb at the time, they were like, can we put a Bible in the foundation and pray over it? And they're like, absolutely you can. You remember that? How good was those days? Not as good as what's to come. But the thing is, once you lay down your life and give everything you've got to God, whatever it is, His kingdom flows out, and then it's easy. It's about letting go of our fear and trusting God. Aligning our spirit with the spirit of generosity is the second mindset shift, church. Because it's a representation whether we can walk out the third mindset shift, servant-hearted. We can't be a servant if we're carrying everything. We've got to love each other. We've got to lay our life down so we're free, just like in Acts here, where they laid it all down. They were all of a sudden free to love and serve each other in the community. It fills our mindset, fills our time. So, are we all good? Before we move into the next space, I just want to do a quick prayer. God, we just thank you for your revelation, and we thank you for your church. And we break condemnation off this house and everyone here and everyone watching and everyone in Nalunga and South Australia and Australia and all across the face of the earth. We no longer have to feel responsible or accountable in this space. We just pray, God, that you would give us a spirit of generosity, that it would be easy to lay down our life for you, and that there wouldn't be anything that would be preventing that. And if there is, then we'll challenge that you would guide us to lay that down and pick up the cross, because that's what it's about. That's what all of this is about. It's laying it down and picking up the cross. All right. We're almost there. Once we lay it all down, we position our hearts to serve. That's the key. Once the first two shifts take place, the third one's easy. But if we haven't done those first two mindset shifts, walking those out, being servant-hearted is so hard. I'm not going to lay my life down. I'm holding it. Jesus is the model in this space, church. To be the greatest, we must be the least. We demonstrate our love by first loving God and His love for each other. We consider others before ourselves. We are selfless. This is prophesying over us, by the way. We use our gifts to serve each other and thus serving God. This is key in the spirit of generosity. It's not actually just about money. It's actually more about what we have, who we are in God, what are our gifts, what are our talents. If we have a gift of healing and prayer, lay it down. Pray for each other. Get out on the street and pray for someone to see them healed. Because when they get healed, what do? Praise God. Boom. When we've laid it down, church, when Alex says to us, or Bo says to us, or someone else says to us, you want to come out on the street and pray for people? It's like, well, why not? I got nothing to lose anyway. I don't care if I get it wrong or they don't get healed because it's all laid down. I'll be honest with you, I'm not there right now, but I want to be. And there was a time where I was, and I'm on that process and that journey, even through this message of going, I need to lay it down again. I need to be in a place where I don't care what people think because of everything is God's, and now I'm positioned to be able to just go, why not? Let's give it a go. Let's have faith. Let's step out. Let's not wait till we see before we step out. Let's step out so we see. Boom. Galatians 5:13. Use freedom as an opportunity to serve each other in the house and in the community. 1 John 3:18. Don't love with your words, but with your actions and truth. Mark 9:35. Anyone who wants to be first must be loved, last, and a servant of all. Matthew 20:28. Jesus didn't come to be served, but to serve. Just for the sake of time, we won't turn here, but in Matthew 25:35 to 40, someone is thirsty. Give them something to drink. If they're hungry, give them some food. I have 10 minutes. I have 5 minutes. I'm like 2 minutes away. When someone needs something, well, we've got what we have. We got what God wants to give them. Okay. How many of you know about the story of the woman at the well? Sorry. Got thrown off there. Just go back up. So in Mark 12:41 to 44. So the widow gave all she had. She laid it all down, and it was so much more valuable than how much the wealthy laid down. Because she didn't lay down just what she had. She laid down her heart. She laid down everything. She positioned herself to not know what's going to happen tomorrow. She positioned herself to not be able to provide for herself. She positioned herself to need a savior, to need a God. And going through the culture of honor, it's more about how we're positioning our hearts for God to have his work and his way in our hearts than what we can do or not do. The third mindset shift is being a servant of all. We make one little shift. Alex makes one shift. Might not see a huge reward for that. That's okay. Ellie makes a shift. Somebody else makes a shift. We all make certain little shifts. Well, straight away, that adds up to what God is doing in this atmosphere. We're shifting together. How many of you know that we are the solution? And we have the solutions. We have everything it takes. You're empowered, you're infilled with the Holy Spirit. You've got gifts, tools. You've got Jesus to see the work of the cross outworked here and beyond. Thank you for your time as I've gone through this bit of a culture journey. There's so much more in this space, and especially when we're looking at relationships and how to do relationships, how to work through confrontation, how to have healthy boundaries. I think that's probably a different stream to head into at another time, but I really want to thank you for your ears to hear, and I really hope that God is doing something and outworking something in your life. What I would say though is this is all to be able to be a healthy church, to work together so we can see the lost saved. It's all about the cross. So everything we do and say in here is more about a foundation where we can see people come in and be healed and lifted up. Yeah.